All right, we'll get started. One of the benefits of these new weekly I Wonder webinars is that we will be recording them. So we will always have them posted to our website and you'll be able to check them out there uh, and catch up on anything that you missed. So for those that may miss the intro today, we'll be able to catch them up if they want to go listen to the recording. We want to welcome you to the first ever DEM I Wonder webinar. DEM has so many services, offerings, and programs and hidden gems that we want to share with all of you. So we're excited to take just a few minutes each week to highlight these features in our weekly webinar. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as everyone's aware, many exercise have been postponed or canceled. So the Utah Division of Emergency Management will be hosting a weekly webinar series aimed at providing local emergency managers with relevant content and opportunities to enhance their capabilities. Webinars will be live for Q&A and will be recorded for later viewing on the DEM website and YouTube channel. Most of these webinars will be workshops with a hands-on portion, which will allow emergency managers to test a DEM product or process. Our schedule today will be as follows. We'll start with ground rules and etiquette, and then I will give the brief presentation on IPPs and IPPWs. Following that presentation, there will be a hands-on portion where participants will be encouraged to test out the product that I'm going to discuss today. And then following the hands-on portion of our program, I'll be available for Q&A, and then following Q&A, we'll close with a short message about upcoming webinars. The ground rules today are fairly simple. Please mute your line while I'm presenting, and if you have any questions, you can type it in the group chat or unmute at an appropriate time to ask your question. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website for future viewing. And thank you again for your attendance. So with that, we'll get started with what is an IPPW. So an IPPW, as many of you may be aware, it came from what was formerly known as the TEPW, or uh, Training and Exercise Planning Workshop, and now is known as an Integrated Preparedness Workshop, Planning Workshop. And the reason for this change was that FEMA realized that there's more to your program calendar than just training and exercise. There are plenty of preparedness activities that we should be aware of as we're planning our year as emergency managers. So an integrated preparedness plan includes all of those activities that you're doing outside of just training and exercise. Those are outreach activities, conferences that you may attend, uh, internal training that may be required just because you are an employee of a county. So as a county and emergency manager, you may be asked to take budget management training or take um, training on defensive driving. Those kinds of things take up time in your calendar, and your calendar should be all encompassing of all of those activities so that you don't overbook yourself for a month because you happen to have 3 internal trainings that you need, as well as trying to do an exercise at the same time. It just doesn't make sense to not plan with your whole calendar in mind. So uh, the first thing that we did for the state of Utah is set up this worksheet to help you work through uh, the integrated preparedness planning workshop. Uh, and so for this worksheet, we created a few different boxes. We're not going to go through this workshop the way that we would normally do. You could take an hour, 2 hours, even up to a whole day to go through this worksheet in your various programs, emergency management programs. But today we're just going to briefly go over it to explain what you could be collecting during an integrated preparedness planning workshop. So the first thing is to collect your milestones and accomplishments. It's really important to point out and recognize the things that you do well and to see those things early on your uh, in your planning for upcoming years. So as you look at what you've done well this year, we ask you to put those in this milestones and accomplishments box. First, on the left, what we set out to develop or achieve. So you take your program priorities from 2019. These are the things we wanted to do. And then over on the right, well, what did we do? Did we accomplish what we had hoped to accomplish? So that's what this first table allows you to do. The second table that we have is to gather our gaps, our lessons learned, and our planned maintenance. So, first, our gaps. We may have a lack of resources, and resources include people, equipment, or facilities. So, you list out any resource gaps that you might have. On the right hand side, we then list what lack of training and or exercising we have. So, we may have plenty of fire trucks in our fire department, but we have all new um, folks working on them who aren't used to that equipment. Or we might have in our EOC, we might have a new phone system that requires you to like pull the phones out of a box and attach them to different wall jacks and set up them through voice over IP. And so you may need to have training on that. So this is a great place where you can list out your lack of resources or your lack of training or exercises so that you can work on those things in the coming year. The next item is lessons learned. So these can come from exercises, training, or real world activities. So during 2020, we have a great example from uh, COVID-19. There are plenty of things that we've been able to learn this year. So, what are those lessons that we've learned, and what things have we learned through assessments? What things have we learned through plans that we've reviewed or updated or created, or any training or exercises that maybe we were able to accomplish this year? So, you put the lessons learned in this table. The next thing to do is look at your plans as they currently exist and look at the planned maintenance schedule. Does your plan's maintenance schedule seem like it's too often or not often enough? We ask that you verify any grant or regulatory requirements and then edit that schedule to meet your needs. If you have been saying that you're going to review a plan every year, but your regulatory requirements only require every 4 years, and you really just haven't been able to stay caught up with your 1 year requirement, go ahead and make that change to allow yourself some flexibility. Um, your maintenance schedule shouldn't hold you uh, to something that really isn't achievable. Following this section of the worksheet, we encourage you to come up with only 4 primary areas for improvement for the coming year. So for 2021, what 4 things do you feel like you can work on and accomplish? And uh, what what are the biggest things you need to focus on, the primary areas? So again, you go back and look at all of those gaps and the lack of resources that you noticed before, all of the different lack of training or lack of exercising that you have, all the lessons learned that you've had, and choose just 4 areas that you really want to focus on for 2021. You list those 4 across the top of this table, like this, and then in the how, you list how you're going to accomplish that. What do you think you're going to do in order to do that? So, if the first item is we want to train all of our EOC staff on how to use our new equipment for our EOC, then you would put that's what you want to accomplish, and then how are you planning to do it? We're going to hold 4 in-person meetings over 2021 with only 4 people in the room so that they can be socially distanced. And we're going to get everyone trained over the course of a year. So that's what you would put in this section of this worksheet. And then the very last thing is to think about what major hurdles you might face and then what next steps you need to take to get going and get the ball rolling as you focus on your 4 priorities for the coming year. Now, as I mentioned, this is a worksheet that you can use in your integrated preparedness planning workshop. And then once your workshop is done, we hope you will put together an integrated preparedness plan. And for those that are EMPG funded, this is in place of your TEP, your training and exercise plan. You now do an IPP, an integrated preparedness plan. And the integrated preparedness plan can be as many years as you would like it to be. In the past, we've said that you need to do 3 years. In the past, we've said it needs to be multi-year. Now it needs to be at least 1 year, and then you determine how your program really can stretch and plan beyond the 1 year, but it needs to be at least a year. Major hurdles. Nobody saw COVID-19 coming, so consider what kinds of things might throw this plan that you set off track, and consider ways that you're going to be able to work around it. So this webinar series is an example of how we're trying to work around COVID-19. So there are ways that you can do it. There are great FEMA virtual exercises that you can utilize to try and meet your exercise needs each year, especially during a year like this. So think about what major hurdles might come up and what ways you might get around those hurdles. With that, your integrated preparedness plan looks very similar to the training and exercise plan. The template has not changed much. The only difference now is that you're going to also include all of the conferences, outreach activities, any internal trainings that you currently do, anything that is beyond just training and exercise, but is part of your program calendar. Grant deadlines, presentations you might do to elected leaders, staff training, changes being made to build a more resilient facility. If you're having to go through a bunch of construction to build a new EOC or to modify your existing EOC, that's going to really hinder how much you can accomplish that year for your emergency management program. But that's part of enhancing your emergency management program. So put it in your calendar, include that. That is an important change to include in your integrated preparedness plan. And then any assessments that are being conducted in your community or any other preparedness activities that you can think of. Include all of that in your calendar now. We don't want to just see trainings and exercises. So with that, if there are any questions about the integrated preparedness planning workshop or the integrated preparedness plan, I would be happy to take questions. You can put them in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself, and I would be happy to answer them on this call. Looks like there's one caller who is unmuted, but I'm not hearing you. I don't know if your volume is working. If there is someone trying to talk right, go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Tracy. Okay, I got a question for you. So this calendar you're looking at now, bless your hearts, there's some of you in this world that can actually look at a calendar and be organized and say, I'm going to do it at this time and that time. And my world is more like I just show up at the swamp each day and figure out what's the biggest alligator I got to whoop first, right?
Yeah.
So that's my life and the way I handle things. So I mean, as organized as I can try to be, I'm going to end up with just a big list of stuff, alligators that I got to just get whooped on, and
Yep.
the order which they get whooped is going to be very fluid based upon the situation and circumstances. So, as I put together a calendar, you want a calendar. You're going to get my task list is what you're going to get with, and there may not be a date assigned to that. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah. So this, as always, and I hope that I've emphasized this in the past and I'll continue to emphasize it. This is what works best for you. And I actually use you, Mark, as an example all the time. I tell people Mark Millett has he has a whiteboard in his office where he just lists out all the stuff that has to be accomplished in the year, and he gets it done when it gets done. But that's his calendar, that's his plan. And so I don't know if you're still using your whiteboard, but that's what when I first was introduced to you, that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
And that works. If you want to take a picture of that whiteboard, that's what works for your program, then that's what should be in your plan. We're not trying to force you down planning. We're not saying everybody buy the Franklin Day Planner to keep track of your tasks. We want you to do it the way that works best for your community. So we're encouraging you to pick priorities and try and focus your year, but we're not trying to force you into how you have to make your plan look.
Okay. Well, you'll be impressed too. I mean, I've got my whiteboard and I keep it pretty busy, but I've actually evolved to a spreadsheet now that's based upon ESF tabs, and my projects are related to that. So
Great.
You might be really impressed, but I am nowhere near putting anything on a calendar yet.
Yeah. Nope, that's great. Whatever
All right.
works best for your program.
And
That's
you
what we're
want a
happy to
copy
see.
of that as part of this and make you happy.
Yeah, so it's part of your EMPG grant requirements. As long as you're still part of EMPG, just keep submitting them the way you would with EMPG.
Okay.
And I'll just read one of the chat comments we just received was.
Oops, sorry.
Oh.
Hit the me button.
The chat comment we received was Mark's whiteboard is great. I've seen it, and that comes from Kimberly Giles. So it's a way that works for you. I think it could be a best practice for lots of people. So thanks, Mark. All right, was there anyone else that had any questions or comments? All right. Well, with that, I want to remind everyone that this webinar and all other webinars in this series will be available on the DEM website at dem.utah.gov/exercises. And our webinar next week will be I wonder how flood risk maps are created and updated for my jurisdiction. And that will be presented by our risk map section. Jamie Huff will be our presenter. So that's November 19th. Again, always Thursdays at noon. And we hope that you'll join us. If you have any I wonder topic suggestions, please reach out. My email is tbodily, TBODILY, @utah.gov to have your topic added to our calendar. We're always excited to help you explore and get to know all that DEM can offer the emergency management community. And with that, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you later.